So let's get right into it. Is homosexuality the new terrorism?
Wow.
Topic question.
Topic one. I mean, I have this really huge belief, and I really believe in the idea of the separation of church and state.
Right.
And the separation of that is private, and that is individual, and that which is collective. And I find it completely, on many levels, unacceptable that human sexuality in its various formats is something that can be legislated, that's something that can be governed, something that can be, because no matter which way you look at it, and I don't think this is anything new in our time and age. I think like 5000 BC, there was people who are engaging in homosexuality, who are heterosexuals, who are asexual, like who knows the range of human sexuality, right? And I don't imagine that we're the first people to have these conversations. History has shown many times that it was easy to target a group of people, say, right, we are now declaring as a state that this is immoral, or this is illegal, or this is. And for me, I think that's actually the act of terrorism. The idea that people who have a political power, a political will, can then dictate to society a moral code. And I think that we've just let it get completely out of hand. Like, politicians have no business discussing miniskirts, none, or like
sexuality.
Who you sleep with, none.
Especially when there are greater issues, far greater issues.
And I think for me, it's like, because this is not even an issue. This should not. This is I'm a little maybe too left wing on that. But for me, it's like, this is not even an issue that as a society we should allow, that we should confer this kind of right to somebody else to create an idea and to determine a thing that has such a personal implication, because those are just other human beings with their own motivations.
Can I flip it a little bit?
Yes,
because,
sir.
Again, seeing that it's a personal thing, and I think where I would see I don't know, I think terrorism is a strong word, but like where I'd see the side that you would call terrorism is, because you are this way, because you're a certain way, right now you find we're at a point where society is almost like, the way we had a girl child, and so before it was like, support the girl child because the girl child is special. Now it's just like, yo, I'm gay, and so I demand to get like, I want to be serving it, and I'm just like, it doesn't define you, because I like to sleep with women, doesn't mean I should get X, Y, and Z. True. And so I feel now it's at a point where, because of the conversation that's happening, the people in the homosexual box, if it's a box, are using it now as it's like a card. It's the card that you play. It's like, I have cancer, and so you guys should be nice to me, and so like,
give me the pocket.
You guys are not gonna treat me because it's now become that thing. And like, if it's such a personal thing, like that is something that happens in your house. You don't care when you come out here. We're all the same. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no special place. So those are things now where the legislation comes in, is stuff like marriage and stuff like that, which is defined by society or religion or whatever, which is supposed to be a certain way, gets affected when now, because we have our cards out, we're going to pull out a card and we also want to get married. And we also want to be able to, and we want to have a gay rep. When you go to vote now,
like
we
the women
are
gay
rep. And so now it becomes a thing that's not private anymore, because you shove it in our faces for the people who are not, right? And I'm like, it's okay for you to be, but that's a personal thing. So we don't also want to have like a situation where, like, are we over embracing? That would be my question. So would we over
I think we are over
embrace?
embracing.
And what way are we over embracing it?
And that's where it becomes.
So in your definition, terrorism is like putting your ideas on me as well.
Yeah, so now it's become a thing.
Embrace my gayness.
Yeah, you must love it. It's a thing you must love now. It's like, if you don't like us, we wage our war against you now, because that guy does not like us.
But does it not boil down to equality? Don't they deserve to be treated equally?
But they're not different. They're not different because of what they like to do in bed. That's what I think. Like, because of what you like to do is not the reason we'll make you equal. We'll make you equal because of everything else, not your sexual preferences. Not that.
Again, like, why is sexuality even placed in a box? I think that's the biggest crime. That's the biggest terrorism. Sexuality is not black and white, though most people would like to think it is. I think it's unfair to equate homosexuality with terrorism, because I don't think they go hand in hand. again, as someone said, it's terrorism to enforce laws on things that can't be defined. Again, one's ethnicity, one's race. You know, no one chooses that, and I don't believe anyone chooses to be homosexual. So, again, these are things that people.
That's another topic right there.
That's where Jesus now is coming. I'm coming back from that.
You know, the thing is, like, okay, so the thing that Paul is saying, you know, I think is right, but in many ways, I can see this conversation also from another perspective, which is, I think gay people, at least in our society right now, Kenya, our context right now, and perhaps, you know, as part of the global context, because from the get-go, this was something that had been legislated against, and there has been a conditioning. They never came to the table. We've never had this conversation as plain, like, we don't have a position on this. It's like, okay, then in that case, it wouldn't matter, right? But now, I think that when people feel that they are cornered, that they're in a box, then they want to make this, they feel the need to bring this to the forefront, to be overt about their actions and to pull out a card and demand that government gives them a certain kind of recognition and a certain kind of respect, because the playing field is not equal, right? So if the Constitution, for example, said marriage is between any two consenting adults of age 18 upward, right? Then you don't need legislation, and you're not trying, because the law hasn't confined, and the law, if the law says, for example, because in the actual sense, the only reason laws govern marriage is because of property and succession of property and succession of the things that have been acquired in one's lifetime. This is the only reason. I think it must not be the only one, but the only one that I know, you know, that creates a context. So we create these laws so that the people who are in this situation can be covered in the event of, and who has claim to this. If the law said any two people, consenting adults who marry, we recognize that as a union, you can marry whoever that you want and the person that you name. If this was the reality from the beginning, then it's like nobody needs to pull out a card, because it's like, you, if you want to marry a man, you go and marry a man. If you want to marry a woman, if you want to not marry, if you want to live with somebody for 6 months and put in an application for some kind of recognition of the union. But that's not what happened. What happened is, from the beginning, when society decided that they want to legislate around marriage, they said marriage is between two consenting man and woman, and then went further to criminalize, right? Because we don't know about the act, the homosexual act. A lot of laws have been gray. It's like, but we will, I mean, about the feeling if you're homosexual, but if we catch you in the act, so we criminalize the act, and therefore criminalizing people. And I think this is why people feel the need to then pull out a card and say, you can't make me a criminal for some things I do in my bedroom. Like, you can't make me a criminal for that.
Because they're not even harming a society. They're choosing those things for themselves. So how can you really criminalize someone who didn't?
I'm so confused about the homosexual topic in an African setting, because I don't know what sparked it off. So I'm trying to still understand what sparked that off. In America, it makes sense, that marriage thing, you want to get married. But in a Kenyan setting, even marriage between, you know, a man and a woman, you could traditional, and it's not a legal thing. So I'm trying to see what right in Kenya are they trying to get it interesting to. Is it the way you dress? I don't know. Like, what was the problem before?
Is it that integration
I don't know what it is.
of religion into the context of marriage? I mean, I think
maybe it's a religious thing.
Because I think, like, the integration of, like, church and state, at least in a Western context, is probably why there's been so much contention around it, because most people would agree that marriage is between a man and woman, you know, under the law of the church, and marriage between a man and a man, or two women, is out of the context of that. As you said, in an African context, I know that marriage can happen outside of, you know, the church. It does not have to be constituted, you know, by religion at all. But again, it goes back to terrorism. Terrorism has nothing to do with religion. People are so up in arms about sexuality because it's not Christian, you know, or a Muslim. It goes against, you know, what these doctrines have put on paper. Just as terrorism is now looked at as a Middle Eastern thing, which is absolutely unfair. And my heart really goes out to those who are marginalized and stereotyped around that, because any one of us at this table could be a terrorist.
True, but I'm not.
Yeah.